if Miami puts some pressure on them and wins tonight.
Okay, so what we're talking about is advantages and disadvantages, perceived advantages and disadvantages. I believe that altitude is a big advantage for Denver.
Yeah.
They're 8-0 in the playoffs this year. That's got to be one of the reasons. I would think that Miami would have a better chance in game 2 when they became a little bit more acclimated to the altitude. But I believe that 10 days off is a terrible disadvantage for Denver.
It's a long time.
I mean, I know that there are statistics will say that I am wrong, but I think when you take 10 days off, you can't simulate a game in practice. I think your legs go soft. I think psychologically you may think you're ready to play the game, but you may not be. Denver will have home court, which matters, and home fans, which matter, but I'm not certain it can overcome. But we begin today with the NBA Finals. Yesterday on this high-quality program, Brian Windhorst told us the Miami Heat have won the last 6 game ones they've played over 2 years. Wilbon, what chance do you give Miami of stealing tonight's game 1 in Denver?
Ooh, I like that, Tony, zeroing on tonight's game. I'm thinking that Miami's going to win tonight, game 1. And then we'll see. They've been able to get out front of people and not trailing in series, and that has helped greatly this run they're on, Tony. So, look, there's so many things working against Miami. Having to play game 1 on the road at altitude here in Denver where that, presents a real problem. Having to deal with the guy that I think is the best player in the world, Nikola Jokic, and a team that is every bit as connected. With the Celtics, we talk about the disconnect. The coach, Joe Mazzulla, was even asked about a disconnect, and he acknowledged there was one, even while they were making a deep run in the playoffs.
And the next year, they won 51 games, and they went to the finals. Now, Detroit won 17 last year. Their last 4 years, I believe, are 17, 23, 20, and 20. They stink, okay? They're terrible. Yeah. So you're going to pay this guy that much money. You expect him to win, I think, right away. I think they expect 30 to 35 games right away. And I don't know about their personnel. I know they got Cade Cunningham, right, who was a #1 draft choice. I don't know that he's as good as what Phoenix had that Monty Williams walked into, but we're going to see. I think that's the expectation.
Tony, if that's the expectation, I think they're sadly mistaken. Look, this is a players' league, and coaches do matter. I'm not one of those people like Lebitard who thinks that coaching doesn't matter. Coaching matters enormously. And Monty Williams, what he did in Phoenix to take them from 19 to really playing well in the bubble, they're something like undefeated in the bubble, and then go to the finals. And, and Ayton undermined Monty Williams and that whole team largely. But he had Devin Booker. And I'm not sure that Cade Cunningham is going to be equal to Devin Booker, even though he's got to be in the same role. And that's what you mentioned about players. They got some young pieces. They're pieces, Tone. And there are too many good teams. There's so many good teams out there.
Lose this game, Mike. I think it's a 5-game series. I think it's easier for Denver to win in Miami than Miami to win in Denver.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you down the line there, Tony. Miami's such an appealing story. Even though you don't think of them as a Cinderella, my God, they're Pat Riley, Eric Spoelstra's in the finals, it seems, every couple of years. Jimmy Butler's been great in the playoffs for years, and yet you look at Miami and say, wow, they're David in this equation of David and Goliath. So I'm intrigued and can't wait to see it. Meanwhile, in other NBA news, Monty Williams just landed the biggest coaching contract in NBA history. The former Suns coach accepted a 6-year, $78.5 million deal from the Detroit Pistons. Pistons haven't had a winning season since 2016. So with this hire, Tony, should we expect the Detroit Pistons to now win?
Well, I don't think they're going to win the NBA title next year, and I'm not certain they'll even win a playoff game. But the only reason you hire Monty Williams and pay him like $13 or $14 million a year, it's an extraordinary sum of money, is because you watched what he did in Phoenix, and he won right away with a young team. Pistons have a...
want Monty Williams to be the face and soul. Yeah, good for him.
$78 million.
You got to say yes to that.
If you don't think you can win a lot of games right away, you didn't have to spend that kind of money. You could have gotten me for $100,000, and I could have lost. Come on, let's move on.
Against a players' league, I don't know. It's going to take them a while. It ain't going to happen overnight.
The NBA draft declaration period is now over. Oscar Tshiebwe of Kentucky, the College Player of the Year 2 years ago, is staying in the draft, even though ESPN's draft rankings list Tshiebwe 75th in a 60-player draft. Meanwhile, Zach Edey of Purdue, the reigning College Player of the Year, opted out of the draft and will return to Purdue. Wilbon, which is the more interesting decision to you?
Well, for me, and a bias comes from growing up 100 miles from, Lafayette, Indiana, and watching Purdue and being a Big Ten guy, and it's Edey. And Edey, with his size and this throw, and I've watched Edey play a lot. When Virginia lost to a 16,
and then they
came
won
back
the
and
tournament.
won the whole thing.
Let's get back into the NBA Finals with our great friend from NBA Today, Mr. Kendrick Perkins. And the first question is a personal question. It draws on the fact that you played in the league and you're big. How would you guard Nikola Jokic? How would you do it?
Tony, I don't know why you put me in this fire, but I'm gonna say this to you. I've guarded a lot of great bigs in my career, from Dwight Howard to Rasheed Wallace, KG, even when he was on Minnesota. Yao Ming, some real talented bigs. Hell, I even had the responsibility of guarding Shaq, our older Shaq, by myself when he was in Cleveland. I've never had to guard a guy like Jokic. And if I did have to guard him, if I was in this series, one, I don't need no other responsibilities. Don't ask me to rebound. Don't ask me to set screens. Don't ask me to do nothing else but solely for
first round. So you can find players later. Maybe one of these guys will fit the bill. They both are interesting, but Edey, for me, is fascinating, compelling.
Yeah, Edey is an old-time center in a new-time league. When you watch him, he looks a little slow. I think he can benefit by going back to college. All the other starters are going back. They want to get rid of that stain, whereas a number 1 seed, they were beaten by a 16 seed, Fairleigh Dickinson. So if he has a real good year and gets quicker, that would help him. He's now projected like 47th or something like that. Tshiebwe ought to go now. He's 23. He's going to be 24 in November. He's played 4 years of college at West Virginia and Kentucky. Pro scouts know who he is. Like, you're getting into your peak earning years. You got to go now. It's not going to get any better if you return to college. But with Edey, it could get better, don't you think? I mean, he could have a good year.
It could.
It could.
And I think
a guy that has a higher average than him is LeBron James. He's second most in triple half court. I would just make sure I stay connected to him at all times because he is a unique big. They run pin downs for him at times and things to that nature, cross screens. So I have to make sure that all my focus and attention is on him. But the worst thing that you could do is lose sight of him and lose contact of him. You have to be connected to him at all times and accept the challenge of physicality. Most centers, right, they don't get an opportunity to have 5 or 6 crab dribbles on a low block. But because of his ability to pass the ball, you have to respect that and you can't send help. So it's like mano y mano. You have to man up and take the hit and be able to take the punch.
Kendrick, I'm going to follow up just for a second on that. Is he the best player in the world right now, Jokic?
I think we have to go ahead and crown him as the best player in the world. You don't average a triple-double throughout the course of the play. We have talked about 2 individuals, right, that he's went against and have really, like, he's made them look basically like non-existence. When you talk about DeAndre Ayton, he's probably about to force Phoenix to trade him. And Anthony Davis, like, he made AD look bad. No one makes Anthony Davis look bad, not to this standpoint. So he is the best player in the league. I have to give Jokic that.
Self-experience, as we just talked about, you wear a championship ring. So I want to ask you about Jimmy Butler, who is a pretty good player in the regular season and a damn good player, I dare say great in the postseason. Perk, how do you explain the jump in the playoffs and the way he's able to perform?
Well, I think it's about the perfect marriage, Wilbon, when you think about it. If you take Michael Jordan and the Miami Heat and they had a baby, you get Jimmy Butler. You get against this postseason. Jimmy Butler, you can't explain that except it's all the mentality, an underdog mentality. From where he grew up from in Tomball, Texas, from being underrated, getting drafted second round, things of that nature. Every single season, I want you to think about this. Every single season, we start off these polls and who would you build a franchise around, what guys pick to be the favorite for as the MVP. We never mentioned Jimmy Butler. And every single postseason, he have a performance like he's having right now for the last 4 or 5 years.
Amen to that, all of that. Season so far, there's nothing so sea level like Miami.
Oh, it's a real thing. It's a real thing. The great thing about it is that Miami been out there for about 3 or 4 days. So they didn't got an opportunity to scrimmage. I know they didn't got up and down. I know guys that ran some sprints, ran on the treadmill. But it's a real thing out there. You know, usually when guys run out pregame, they go out the team runs out about 19 or 18 on the clock. When you in Denver, you're like, oh, we getting out there with 26 on the clock. We want 26 minutes because they want to get a good sweat. You actually see guys at half court running some line sprints. Like, you got to get adjusted to that altitude, but it's a real thing. It's a real thing. And if you're not mentally prepared, it can affect you not only mentally but physically.
We'll get you out of here on this, and you got to help us by doing it in under 15 seconds. Which way are you leaning right now, Miami or Denver?
The Knicks, they spanked them, and they were the underdogs against the Boston Celtics, and they rolled them up like a yoga mat. So why would it stop now?
Thank you, Perk. Thank you, Perk.
Appreciate you.
All right, thank y'all.
Let's take one last break. Still to come, Tom Brady responds to the speculation that he could play again.
And Rose debut on the LPGA Tour. We're going to tell you how she did because we're sort of Rose fans. We really are.
Rolled you up like a yoga mat.
Like a yoga mat.
Interruption is presented by Corona. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
Happy time, people. Happy 54th birthday, Tony Bennett. Not Tony Bennett, the singer. He's 96. Tony Bennett, the basketball coach at Virginia. He won the national championship in 2019 over Texas Tech. So he's got a ring and 6 ACC and a 4 seed to 13's Ohio and Furman. These are losses that haunt your dreams. By the way, Bennett played college ball for his father Dick at Wisconsin Green Bay, and he was a backup guard in the NBA for parts of 3 seasons, 152 games with Charlotte.
Tony, those losses are not. If Bennett was a free agent right now and I was a college president, I'd be telling my AD, you better get him on the next private plane to this campus because the short list, he's at the very top of the shortest of lists of college coaches I would want representing my school and my team.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Happy anniversary, Johan Sand.